In September 1988, in a farming district south of Seoul, a schoolgirl was murdered in her own bedroom. Police arrested a 22-year-old repairman who lived nearby. They handcuffed him in a room for 3 days. No sleep, barely any food, and at the end of it, a confession. He served 19 years and 6 months. He was innocent. He was not the only one. 10 women and girls were killed in Hwaseong. 7 men were destroyed hunting the man who did it. And when they finally found him 33 years later, they discovered they were no longer allowed to charge him with anything. This is Hwaseong. In 1986, it was farmland 40 kilometers south of Seoul. Rice paddies, vinyl greenhouses, villages of 30 houses. 1 bus route in, 1 bus route out. After dark, there were no streetlights, and the fields went black. It was the kind of place where nothing happened. On the 15th of September 1986, a 71-year-old woman was found in a field. Her name was Lee Won-im. 5 weeks later, a 25-year-old woman, Park Hyun-suk. In December, 2 more, 2 days apart. In January, a 19-year-old. By the following May, 6 women were dead in less than 8 months. Then for 16 months, nothing. He came back in September 1988 and killed twice in 9 days. They were taken at night in the fields, usually in the rain. They were bound with their own clothes. That is as much as this film is going to say about how they died. They were farmers' wives, students, grandmothers, women walking home. The oldest was 71, the youngest was 13. They had nothing in common but the road they were on. Hwaseong stopped going out after dark. Men formed patrols and walked the lanes with sticks. And the district told itself stories. That he only came in the rain. That he chose women in red. None of it was ever proved, but the whole country was watching now, which turned out to be the problem. What followed was the largest criminal investigation in the history of South Korea. Over 5 years, police committed more than 2 million man-days to it. They investigated 21,280 people. They took 40,000 fingerprints, and for 33 years it produced nothing. They had one real lead. After the 7th killing, a bus driver and his conductor remembered a passenger. A young man who got on late, soaked through, on a night it had been raining. From that, police drew a sketch. 20s, slim, 165 to 170 centimeters. Soft hands, the conductor said, not a farmer's hands. And one more thing from the evidence at the scenes, blood type B. Remember that. It is the most important sentence in this story. Police sent female officers into the fields at night dressed in red. Decoys for a pattern that was never more than a rumor. This was 1988, the year of the Seoul Olympics. Korean policing was built to control crowds and watch dissidents. It was not built to read a hair or a fingerprint or a stain. They collected the evidence anyway. They just could not make it speak. So they did the other thing. They went looking for someone who would say yes. 9 days after that description, the 8th case, a schoolgirl killed indoors in her own room. Every other victim had been taken outside in a field. So police decided this one was different. A copycat. And a copycat needs a culprit of its own. In July 1989, they arrested a 22-year-old who lived near the house. Sung-yeo repaired farm machinery. He had a limp from childhood polio, bad enough that the army would not take him. His mother died in a car accident when he was small. His father disappeared. He left school, begged outside a chicken shop for a year, and was working by 11. They handcuffed him in that room for 3 days. He was let out to use the toilet. Every time he fell asleep, they woke him. When you don't get sleep for 3 days, you don't know what you said. You just go along with their questions. On the 3rd day, he told them he had done it. He signed 3 confessions. There was one piece of science against him, a forensic report saying a hair from the scene was his. 30 years later, prosecutors found the report had been fabricated. The record of his confession said a witness had been present. There was no witness. At his trial, he admitted it anyway. He was hoping they would not hang him. He was sentenced to life. He walked out in 2009, December 1990, the 9th case, and they did it again. This time the man was 19, Yoon Dong-il. A different Yoon, a different case, the same room and the same method. They tortured him until he confessed. Then they took him out to the scene to reenact what he had done. And standing there in front of all of them, he took it back. The murder charge collapsed. What was recovered at the scene did not match his blood type. He was convicted of a separate offense instead and released. He was never the same again. He died of cancer in 1997. He was 26. And in between them, in July 1989, an 8-year-old girl did not come home from school. Police found her remains, and they hid them. Reports were rewritten. A murder became a missing persons file. At least 4 men caught up in this investigation killed themselves. Every one of them was innocent. On the 3rd of April 1991, a 69-year-old woman was killed, Kwon Soon-song. The 10th case, and then it stopped. No warning, no last message, no explanation. 3 months later in July, the man who had done it got married. Nobody knew that because nobody knew who he was. The investigation wound down. The file went into storage. The fields were sold and built on. Hwaseong stopped being farmland and started becoming a city. Meanwhile, the law was running out. Murder in South Korea then carried a 15-year limit. After 15 years, no charge could be brought. Ever. The limit was extended in 2007 and abolished in 2015. Neither change applied backwards. On the 2nd of April 2006, the clock on the last Hwaseong murder ran out. 13 years later, a technician opened a box. In 2019, South Korean forensics had something the 1980s did not. Techniques that could read a sample too degraded to test before. They went back to what had been sitting in storage for 30 years. On the 18th of September, they got a match. It belonged to a man who was already in prison. He had been there 25 years, serving life for murdering his sister-in-law. That killing happened in Cheongju in 1994. He was arrested within days. His name was Chun-jae. He was born in Hwaseong. He was killing on roads he had walked as a child. He left the army in January 1986. The first murder was that September. And here's the part that costs everything. Chun-jae was questioned during the original investigation and eliminated because the evidence said the killer was blood type B. Chun-jae is type O. A mistake in the analysis or a contaminated sample, the record does not make it clear. Either way, they had him in the room, and they let him go. Years later, he told a court something worse. When police stopped him during the investigation, he was carrying a watch. It had belonged to one of the women he killed. They questioned him about his missing identity card and let him go. He denied it for 2 weeks. On the 2nd of October 2019, he confessed to 14 murders. 10 of them were the Hwaseong cases. He also admitted to more than 30 sexual assaults. DNA tied him to 5. For the rest, he described things only the man who was there could know. And none of it, not one of the 14, could ever be charged. There was one courtroom left where he could be made to say it out loud. Not his own trial, he will never have one. In November 2020, he appeared as a witness at somebody else's retrial. Sung-yeo, out on parole, was trying to clear his name. Lee told the court, "I didn't think the crimes would be buried forever." He described the 8th case in detail, showing no emotion. It had never been a copycat. On the 17th of December 2020, the court acquitted Sung-yeo. The judge found police had used torture, sleep deprivation, and illegal detention to get his confession. Then he apologized from the bench for the court's failure, he said, to work as the last defense of human rights. "I can let down this heavy load I've been carrying for 30 years, Yoon said, and get some rest. 3 months later, the state was ordered to pay him 2.5 billion won. He had been out 12 years. It took him 3 to learn how to live outside. 7 of the police officers who worked the case and 1 prosecutor were investigated. None of them could be charged. The same time limit that protected Lee Chun-jae protected them. In December 2022, a Truth Commission read 200,000 pages of the original files and found 7 men had been wrongly accused. Illegal arrest, torture, fabricated and concealed evidence. On the 30th of October 2025, a court acquitted Yoon Dong-il. He had been dead for 28 years. In May this year, the children of Hwaseong Rock had their turn. Their father was held illegally for a week and publicly branded a deviant. He never lost the label. He died in 2002. The court had proposed a settlement. The government refused it. Then the court awarded them 16%. They said they would appeal, because the commission's findings had started a clock of their own. 3 years to sue the state. It ran out last December. Most of the men it named never filed at all. 1 family got inside in time. In April, Yoon Dong-il's brother had to ask a judge to make the state hand over the files. The judge urged the government to cooperate. The next hearing was 2 weeks ago. The murders have been closed since 2020. The case has not. It is not even called the Hwaseong murders anymore. Korean courts name it after the man who did it, not the place. The district got its name back. These are the people who did not. And these are the men the search destroyed. "2 million police days, 33 years, 7 innocent men, and a killer who can never be tried." In 2020, Sung-yeo was asked what he wanted from the police. He said his own apology mattered less. "I think the police owe an apology to the people of South Korea. Can you imagine how many people could have been wrongfully accused